Dusk settles in a small kitchen. You can almost feel the warmth from the oven door, smell the hush of steam, see a thumb-worn recipe card waiting by the stove. Tonight, you and I are going back to the home front, where thrift became love and dinner meant dignity. Come closer. Let's set the table for memory and taste how scarcity was turned night by night into care. Meatloaf. You know this one by the sound before the taste. The tinny ring of a bowl, the soft tumble of breadcrumbs, the slow fold of a wooden spoon. Meatloaf taught you that a small thing, tended well, can hold a family. Ground meat, the kind you could manage that week, meets crumbs or oats, an egg if you have one, onion minced to a whisper, a spoon of milk to keep it tender. You mix with your hands, because that's how tenderness enters food. In the hard years, you didn't measure like a laboratory. You measured like a household. A handful of crumbs, a palm of salt, pepper you count by heartbeats. The pan takes the shape of evening, compact, practical, certain. You smooth the top like smoothing a child's hair, then paint on the glaze. Ketchup brightened with a shy spoon of vinegar and a line of brown sugar. Not extravagance, promise. While it bakes, the kitchen finds its voice. Onion turns mellow. The glaze caramelizes to a sweet, savory lacquer. You keep watch, not to hurry it, but because this isn't just dinner, it is stewardship. When the timer hums, you let it rest so juices stay where they should and slices keep their dignity, the way patience keeps a family from fraying. You plate in generous, quiet slices. The knife sighs through, revealing a tender crumb that holds yet yields kindly, softened by milk, lifted by onion, bright with that tangy top coat. It isn't fancy, and that is the point. Meatloaf is dignity in a pan, proof that thrift seasons into comfort. There is a second gift, tomorrow. A heel of bread, a cold slice pressed flat, a swipe of mustard, the lunch that carries yesterday's care into today's pocket. Some suppers end when the plates are cleared. This one lingers, making morning easier. End pieces for someone who loves the dark edges, middle slices tucked away for sandwiches. Nothing wasted, everything accounted for. You taste and remember, in lean years, you didn't merely get by. You turned a little into enough and enough into love. Peanut butter soup. You remember the jar before the recipe. Paper label softened by time, a spoon mark along the rim where someone you love once paused to taste. When meat felt far away, you reached for what you had, and the pantry answered back. Peanut butter, steady as a heartbeat. Begin the way good soups begin, with warmth. A pot over modest heat, a small shine of butter if fortune allows, or a little oil if it doesn't. Soften a whisper of onion until it turns glassy. Stir in a spoon of flour and let it bloom. Now the kindness. A scoop of peanut butter slipping from metal to pot, loosening in the heat. Whisk in milk or water, whatever the day can spare, slowly, steadily, until the unlikely turns smooth. If there's a potato, dice it thin. If there's rice, shake in a handful. A few peas or a lone carrot may join, because nothing good waits alone in this kitchen. Season by memory. Salt to lift, pepper to warm, perhaps a faint paprika or a bay leaf if the tin allows. The soup thickens the way hope does, gradually, then all at once, gathering odds and ends into something you can ladle, share, believe in. The scent is quiet, nutty roundness, a hint of toast from the roux, onion humming like a lullaby. You taste gentleness, not show, the faint sweetness of the jar, a body that holds you, a finish that lingers like good counsel. Because this is the home front. You think of tomorrow while you feed today. Cool what's left, tuck it away. By morning, the flavors settle into themselves and into you. Serve with a heel of bread if you have it, rubbed with garlic if you're lucky, or with nothing but steam and the sound of chairs pulled close. It isn't fancy. It is faithful, a small economy turned into care. You lift the ladle and pour another bowl, remembering what lean years taught you. Protein can come from a jar and comfort from the hand that serves it. Johnny cakes. You hear them before you see them. the soft hiss of batter meeting hot iron, a sound as steadying as rain on a porch roof. In lean years, you learned to trust cornmeal the way you trust a good neighbor, always there, plain and honest, asking little and offering much. Wheat flour was for holidays and company. Cornmeal kept the week afloat. You begin simply. A bowl, a cup of cornmeal, a pinch of salt, enough water to make a pour that moves like thick cream. If fortune smiles, you trade water for a little buttermilk. If not, you add a thimble of fat to the pan and call it even. Some folks stirred in a spoon of sugar, some didn't. The point was never ornament. It was nourishment you could count on. The skillet waits. Cast iron, black as a night well kept. You slick it with a breath of oil, then pour in modest circles. Bubbles rise, edges go from shine to matte, and you turn each cake with care, not to show off, but because attention is a kind of love. The first side freckles, the second side deepens. The kitchen fills with a toasty, sunny smell that makes the room feel less empty. Sweet or savory, Johnny Cakes answer to the day. In the morning, you might give them a ribbon of syrup or honey. At noon, you tuck one beside a bowl of beans. At night, you set them under greens, soaking up pot liquor like a promise kept. Some called them hoe cakes once, cooked on a flat blade over coals, proof that a flat, hot surface and a little corn can carry a family. Nothing is wasted. If batter remains, you leave it for evening. If cakes remain, you wrap them for tomorrow's pocket. They travel well, quiet and sturdy, like people who learn to do without complaint. And though they're humble, no lace, no shine, you taste them and feel steadied, crisp edge giving to a soft heart, corn's gentle sweetness lifted by salt and heat. You stack them on a plate and pass them hand to hand. This is how a grain becomes a light at the table, how a week of hard sums turns for a few minutes into enough. Navy bean soup. You can still hear it, dry beans pinging an enamel bowl like small hail on a tin roof. In the hardest seasons, those sacks from the pantry or relief line felt like a promise you could hold. Beans reward patience. They ask only for water, time, and your steady hand. Begin the way elders taught you. Rinse until the road dust runs clear. Soak if the day allows, or quick boil and let them rest. Beans love being given time to think. Slip in a halved onion like a secret, a bay leaf if one hides in the tin, maybe a tired carrot or a rib of celery rescued from the back of the box. If a ham bone or heel of salt pork is waiting, it goes in, not as a boast, but as a memory of meat, a smoky underline. If not, the beans will speak for themselves. Keep the simmer low, the way you keep a baby sleeping. Foam rises, you skim and watch the surface settle to small, confident bubbles. Salt comes late, so skins stay tender. Now and then you stir from the bottom, the spoon touching the pot like a reassuring hand. The house begins to smell decided, sturdy, savory, calm. When the beans yield to softness, lift the bone if there is one. Pull what the soup will spare and let it slip back in. Some nights you mash a ladleful against the side to thicken. Other nights you leave them whole and shining. Either way, you ladle bowls and set bread within reach. Cornbread when you have it, yesterday's crust when you don't. Butter if fortune smiles. Always steam rising. This is a supper that carries into tomorrow. The pot cools, flavors knit. Morning finds the broth silkier with what the beans have given. Warm it again, and it gathers everyone without calling names. It stayed not because it was grand, but because it was faithful. Protein from patience, comfort from care. In lean years, a handful of beans could make a room feel full. Vegetable pot pie. You remember the knife going in, the faint crackle of crust, steam billowing like a kept promise. When meat sat beyond reach, you brought the garden to the table and let comfort wear a golden lid. Pot pie wasn't a compromise. It was a way of saying we have enough with what the earth placed in your hands. Begin with a pot the size of evening. Onions soften until sweet and clear. Carrots and celery, coins and crescents follow. Potatoes in small, steady cubes. Peas from a tin or a vine when the season is kind. Make a small roux the way your grandmother did. Fat and flour whisked until it smells like toast. Then loosen with water or milk, maybe a ladle of yesterday's broth. A bay leaf, a crack of pepper, thyme if a twig dries by the window. Simmer until the sauce learns the shape of the vegetables, coating them the way care coats a house. The crust is whatever the day allows. True pastry if you've saved enough fat. A biscuit topping if you haven't. Even mashed potatoes smoothed with the back of a spoon. Humble, honest, good. Spread, mark with fork tines, and cut a small vent so the pie can breathe. Into the oven it goes, where time and heat turn thrift into ceremony. Out it comes, and the room shifts. Edges browned, bubbles winking through the vent, a smell that makes people put down what they're doing and come closer. Let it settle. Patience keeps the filling from rushing and the slice whole. On the plate, the crust flakes into tender shards. Beneath, vegetables are not without meat, but with one another. Carrot sweetness, potatoes steadiness, peas like small green lights. There's always a little left for tomorrow, tasting deeper for the wait. You wrap the dish and feel the ease of knowing breakfast is considered. Abundance, these kitchens taught, is often arrangement, gathered, thickened, covered, and shared. Tonight, the garden is enough. Potato pancakes. You hear the skillet before the first bite, the bright, quick sizzle that says oil is ready and supper won't be long. When flour was dear and hunger was not, potatoes stepped forward like an old friend who never asks for thanks. You grate what the earth could spare, and with a little patience, turn it into something crisp enough to lift a room. Begin with what you have. Potatoes, washed of their field and grated fine, onion grated alongside until its sweetness blooms. Wrap the mixture in a clean cloth and twist. The water runs away so cakes fry instead of steam. Stir back a spoon of the starchy sediment, the pantry's quiet trick. An egg if you have one, or a little flour if you can spare it. Salt and pepper by memory. The batter must move but hold, like a promise kept. Heat a heavy cast iron pan and slick it with just enough oil to shine. Lay the batter down in modest moons, easing edges with the back of the spoon. The sound sharpens, then settles into a steady song. Wait for margins to brown and the surface to lose its sheen. Turn gently. The second side freckles to gold, and the room begins to smell like resolve turning into reward. Serve as the day decides. A ribbon of applesauce for brightness, a spoon of sour cream for hush, a scatter of chives if the garden remembers you. On leaner nights, slide a fried egg on top and call it dinner. Beside a bowl of soup, they become a raft that carries you further than planned. Leftovers wrap for tomorrow or crisp again to reclaim their edge. You stack them and pass the plate hand to hand, hearing the small crisp of each bite. Nothing extravagant, only starch and skill, heat and attention. But it's all there. The browned lace of the edges, the tender center, onion threading through like a soft bell. In a kitchen asked to do more with less, these pancakes answer kindly, turning hunger into hush and hush into home. Split pea soup with ham bone. You begin with almost nothing. A saved ham bone wrapped in paper, a bag of green split peas that whisper like dry grass. In lean seasons, you learned this truth. Flavor remembers longer than meat. The bone holds smoke and salt, and if you give it time, it will give them back. Rinse the peas until the water runs clear. Warm a pot and let a little fat find the bottom, dripping saved in a jar or a spoon of oil if that's the day. Slip in onion, carrot, and celery, cut small and patient, and stir until the edges shine. Lay the bone like a keel, pour over water, and watch peas fall around it like green confetti for a quiet holiday. A bay leaf if there's one. A twig of thyme if it dries by the window. Keep the simmer low, no hurry, no storm. Foam rises, skim it away, clearing the surface the way you clear worry from a child's brow. Peas soften, then surrender, turning broth from clear to kindly. Tilt the bone and threads of meat let go. Coax the rest with a fork, not greedily, just enough. Salt waits until peas are gentle. Pepper arrives like a small warm hand. Some nights you press a ladleful to silk, other nights you leave it rustic and bright. Either way, the taste is what you hoped for: smoke without swagger, sweetness from vegetables that gave what they had, and a thickness that steadies from the inside out. If the bowl needs light, a drop of vinegar lifts it like a raised blind. Carry it to the table with a heel of bread or a square of cornbread. The steam curls like forgiveness. There will be more tomorrow. The soup deepens overnight, remembering everything you taught it. From a bone and a handful of peas, you made plenty. From patience and care, you made home. Hoover Stew. You remember the shape of it first. The elbows of pasta slipping into a red, friendly broth. How a few cans in a kettle could turn a hard day toward mercy. Hoover Stew wasn't born in a cookbook, but in soup lines and church basements, in home kitchens that understood numbers too well. You made it when coins were thin and appetites weren't, when dinner needed to multiply without asking questions. Choose a pot that can hold a crowd, even if the crowd is just your own. Bring water to a boil, salt what you can spare, and send in macaroni to soften shy of tender. Meanwhile, open what the pantry offers: tomatoes in their juice, diced or crushed, it won't mind. A can of beans for staying power, another of corn for sweetness. If the week left kindness, slice in hot dogs or a stub of sausage, onions if you have them, sautéed in a slick of oil until they smell like someone waiting for you to come home. Drain the pasta early so the rest can happen together. Everything meets in one pot. Tomatoes first, then beans and corn, then pasta like small boats returning to harbor. If meat is joining, slide it in now, coins of pink turning tender in the warmth. Season the way Depression kitchens taught you, with memory and thrift. Salt to lift, black pepper to warm, a pinch of paprika or dried oregano if the tins still rattle. Simmer until elbows drink the broth, and the broth learns everyone's names. The scent is simple and open-handed: tomato bright, grain warm, a hint of smoke if sausage visited. Ladle into bowls, set cornbread beside if the day allowed, scatter chopped onion if the garden was kind. Watch how quickly bowls return, how seconds become a kind of gratitude. There's almost always more for tomorrow, thicker and deeper for the waiting. You tuck a container into the icebox and feel relief like a hand on your shoulder. Not glamour, not surprise, just a hot red bowl that says we can stretch this and then proves it. Cabbage and noodles, Haluski. You begin with a cabbage heavier than it looks, tight leaves like a kept secret, pale green deepening to the heart. In lean years, this was the vegetable that showed up and stayed, asking little and feeding many. Children who turned from bitter greens would eat this because butter and onions teach patience, and patience teaches sweetness. Set a skillet over steady heat, cast iron if you have it, the kind that remembers. Melt a knob of butter, or warm a spoon of saved fat if butter is scarce. Slip in a sliced onion and let it relax from sharp to mellow, edges picking up gold. Now the cabbage, cut into ribbons as wide as the evening permits. It looks like too much at first, but warmth makes room. Salt lightly and let the heat do the folding. The mound sinks, steam rises, the kitchen learns that soft, nutty sweetness cabbage keeps for those who wait. While the skillet works, boil noodles. Egg noodles if fortune allows, any short pasta if it doesn't. Drain shy of tender so they can finish in the pan. If a scrap of bacon or a heel of sausage survive the week, dice it small and let it kiss the skillet before the cabbage. Smoke threads the dish with memory. If not, pepper is its own kind of generosity. Bring it together, noodles into cabbage, a small ladle of pasta water to bind, another breath of butter to gloss. Toss gently until ribbons and noodles learn one another's names. Taste and adjust. Salt to brighten, black pepper enough to be seen, a pinch of caraway if the jar still rattles. Let the bottom sit a minute to catch a faint welcome crisp. What reaches the table is unassuming and irresistible. Sweet cabbage, tender noodles, onions hush, butter's quiet shine. Tomorrow it's better still, freckled again in the same skillet. Thrift, taught carefully, becomes comfort. Comfort, shared simply, becomes home. Boiled dinner, corned beef and cabbage. Choose a pot big enough for comfort, one that can hold water, patience, and the day's worry. Corned beef goes in first, rinsed and set down like an anchor, then covered with cold water and the hush that comes when something important begins. Add what the cupboard can spare: a halved onion, a few peppercorns, a bay leaf if the tin allows. If a mustard seed or two escapes the jar, let it. Bring the pot to a gentle simmer, not a rush. Good dinners don't like to be hurried. Time does the tenderizing. Skim now and then so the broth stays bright. The kitchen fills with that particular promise corned beef makes: salty, savory, faintly sweet. When the meat slackens under your fork, invite the company it's been waiting for. Carrots cut in honest lengths, potatoes in sturdy quarters. They slide in and take up the seasoning the beef has been giving away all along. Cabbage waits last because cabbage is gracious. It needs only a short swim to turn soft and shining. Wedge it and watch the leaves go translucent, like paper held to the light. Sauces aren't required when the week is thin, though a spoon of sharp mustard or a dab of horseradish can make the plate speak up. Lift the brisket to a board and rest it. Slice across the grain so each piece yields kindly. Bowls catch vegetables glistening with broth. A ladle follows for those who want warmth straight. On plates, the colors look like a flag for survival: rose meat, orange carrot, white potato, green cabbage, all saying the same word: enough. Beloved not only for tonight but for the way it continues. Tomorrow becomes sandwiches, cool slices with mustard, then a skillet of hash, diced small and crisped until edges sing. The broth is not wasted. It becomes another soup carrying the week further. One pot, many meals, each quieter because the first was made with care. Patience shared becomes plenty. Biscuits with gravy. You start before the sun quite makes up its mind. A bowl, a scoop of flour, light as dust, a pinch of salt, baking powder like small courage. Fat comes next, cut in with fingertips until the mix looks like wind-marked fields. Pebbly, uneven, right? If fortune sends buttermilk, you use it. If not, milk will do, or even water warmed by the stove. Stir just enough to bring the dough together, no scolding. Then turn it onto the board and pat it thick as 2 fingers. A quick fold, another pat, a cutter dipped in flour. Rounds like moons take their places on the tray. The oven does its faithful work. In minutes, the kitchen smells like a lifted burden. Biscuits climb, split, show hidden layers. You wait. Patience keeps tenderness in. While they rise, you make the gravy that steadied so many mornings and evenings. Drippings if you have them. If not, a spoon of fat will do. Sprinkle in flour and cook until it smells like toast, whisking away the raw edge. Then the slow pour. Milk or milk stretched with water, thin at first, then thickening as heat speaks to it. Salt. Black pepper you can see. A nub of sausage or scrap of bacon if the week allows. If not, the gravy stands on its own, honest and bright with pepper. Split a biscuit and steam drifts up like a quiet hallelujah. Gravy finds every crease, softening the crumb without scolding its edges. Plates pass. Someone adds a fried egg. Someone else steals a second biscuit and calls it medicine. On leaner nights, this is dinner. On better mornings, it feels like Sunday. Either way, the table learns a minute of satisfied silence. Leftovers are gentle with you. Biscuits warmed on a dry skillet, gravy thinned with a little water remembering generosity. 3 plain things: flour, fat, milk, turned by heat and care into assurance. In a season that asked you to make do, you made more. Flaky, peppered, warm, and enough. Beans and rice. You learn the rhythm first. The rinse, the soak, or quick boil. The slow, companionable simmer that turns dry beans into something willing to meet you halfway. In lean years, this was the duet you could always afford. Grain and legume, hand in hand, making a complete meal out of patience and steam. You don't brag, you keep a pot going and the house feels steadier. Begin simply. Rinse the beans until the water runs honest. If time is your friend, soak them. If not, bring them to a brief boil and let them rest under a lid, the way you rest after a long morning. In a heavy pot, give onion and a clove of garlic a little shine in oil or save drippings. Slide in the beans with their soaking water or fresh. Add a bay leaf if the tin permits, a pinch of cumin if a neighbor taught you, a shake of paprika or chili if the night is cold. Keep the heat low. Beans like being listened to. While they soften, tend to the rice, the other half of the promise. Rinse until the cloudy starch clears, then cook covered and unbothered, a small flame doing gentle work. Some nights you toast the grains first so they smell like a warm cupboard. Salt the water as you're able. When the rice is done, it waits obediently, fluffy and quiet under its lid. The beans arrive when they're ready, skins tender, centers creamy. Salt, late, taste, and adjust. If you have a scrap of smoked meat, let it visit. If not, onion sweetness and spices small courage carry the tune. Ladle beans over rice or fold rice into beans. Either way, the bowl becomes more than its parts. A scatter of green onion or a squeeze of vinegar wakes it up. A spoon of oil gives it shine. Mercy continues tomorrow, thickened for breakfast, crisped into cakes for supper, or stretched into soup. Two simple things cooked without hurry tell you what you needed to hear. Enough can be made, home can be kept, and care can be served by the ladle. Cornmeal mush. You start with a pot and a promise. Water comes to a steady boil. You salt it the way you'd season weather, enough to matter. Cornmeal falls in a thin rain from your hand, while the whisk keeps trouble away. The steam rises like a good secret. In lean years, this grain showed up without complaint. Cheap, steady, willing to be breakfast, supper, and something between. Lower the flame and keep stirring. Patience is the price of silk. The mush moves from ripples to ribbons, from ribbons to slow blops folding over themselves like soft breath. If fortune allows, a spoon of butter or a splash of milk. If not, the corn speaks on its own, sweet, sunny, a little grassy. When the spoon stands for a heartbeat before sinking, you're there. Tonight it's warm in bowls, maybe a square of butter drifting to gold, maybe a thread of syrup or a spoon of stewed tomatoes if the pantry leans savory. It fills without fuss, the kind of quiet that steadies a room. Then comes the home front wisdom. Pour the rest into a greased pan, loaf tin, pie plate, whatever waits. Smooth the top with the back of your spoon and let the cold night do its faithful work. Tomorrow is the second act. Turn out the firmed slab, cut modest slices, and heat a slick of fat in a skillet. The pan answers with a cheerful hiss. Slices go pale to gold to that brown that makes you pause. Outside, a crisp shell, inside, custard soft. Two textures agreeing to be one thing. Sweet calls for a ribbon of molasses or honey, savory welcomes a fried egg, a scatter of onions, a spoon of leftover gravy. Nothing is wasted. End pieces are the cook's prize. Crumbs return to the next pot and thicken it without boasting. One pot makes 2 meals. 2 meals make a week feel longer than the ledger said it could. You learn to pour, to wait, to fry, and to turn a humble grain into a light at the table. Onion soup. You begin with a pile of onions and a patience you didn't know you owned. The first cut stings, like the day's worry rising and washing out, but you keep slicing into thin half-moons, steady and equal. In lean years, onions were the friend who always showed up, cheap, sturdy, willing to become more if you gave them time. Set a heavy pot over low heat. This is not a fast supper, it's a faithful one. A spoon of fat goes in, butter if you have it, save drippings if you don't. The onions follow, a drift of pale gold that soon fills the pot. Salt early so they slump. Then, do the oldest kitchen work there is, stay. Stir now and then so nothing scorches, and the sugars wake slowly. Minutes become many, sharpness lifts. The house smells like toast and hay and something kindly. What was harsh turns soft. What was thin turns deep. When the onions are the color of late afternoon, nudge in a pinch of flour and cook off the raw edge. Add a splash of vinegar or the last inch of wine. Poverty never forbids brightness. Then, stock if you have it, water if you don't. Poured in small baptisms to loosen the fond and bring it along. A bay leaf if the tin allows. A stem of thyme if one dries by the window. Simmer until onions and broth agree on who they are together. Taste and tune. salt to lift, pepper to warm. Some nights you float a heel of bread on each bowl, rubbed with garlic if fortune smiles. If cheese is possible, scatter and broil until bubbles blink and the top goes spotted and brave. If not, the soup stands unadorned, clear, brown, honest. What you carry to the table is more than broth. It is change made edible, sharpness taught to be sweet, scarcity taught to be enough. You lift the spoon, and the steam feels like permission to rest. Spaghetti with tomato sauce. You hear it before you smell it. The light tinny pop when a can of tomatoes gives way. The bright promise of red on a gray evening. In lean years, spaghetti with tomato sauce was how you turned a ledger into a little holiday. Not a feast, just a plate that made the room sit up straighter. Begin with a pan and quiet heat. A spoon of oil, an onion chopped as fine as patience allows, a clove of garlic if you have one, sliced thin so it softens without burning. Salt the onion early, let it travel from sharp to sweet. Tomatoes follow, crushed, diced, or whole, you break with the back of a spoon. If a bay leaf waits in the tin, it goes in. If dried oregano or basil survived the summer, rub it between your fingers so it wakes. A thread of sugar if the fruit is stubborn, a splash of vinegar if it needs light. Then, the part depression kitchens knew best. Time. A gentle simmer so the sauce can decide itself, bright edges rounding, pulp and seeds learning to speak in one voice. While the sauce grows sure, set a pot to boil and salt the water like the sea you've only read about. Spaghetti lowers in, stiff with caution, then softens and swims. Cook it shy of done so it can finish in the sauce. Bring along a dipper of starchy water, the quiet glue that marries noodle to red. Toss together, lifting with a wooden spoon until every strand shines. If fortune left you a heel of cheese, grate a little snow. If not, the gloss is enough. Carry the pot to the table. Passing bowls is part of the warmth. The first bite is simple and right. Garlic humble behind tomato, onion gentle, herbs a memory of green. Bread if you have it, parsley if the garden remembers you. There will be some left for tomorrow. Spaghetti is grateful for a night to think. You warm it and it tastes like resolve. Scarcity didn't win that night. Red sauce did. Bread dumplings in tomato soup. You begin with what might be overlooked, heels of bread gone tough at the edges, the kind you once reached past for softer slices. In lean years, you learned to hear a quiet invitation in what remained. Cube the bread small, slide it into a bowl, and soften with what the day allows. A pour of milk if you have it, water if you don't. An egg is a kindness. If one is there, beat it in. Salt, a breath of pepper, a pinch of parsley or onion if fortune left you flavor. Stir gently until the bread stops being pieces and starts being company. While the crumbs drink and swell, set a pot to work. Tomatoes, canned and faithful, go in with their juice, loosened with water or broth. A clove of garlic if one waits in the crock, a slip of onion if you saved half from yesterday, a bay leaf or a shake of dried basil rubbed between your fingers. Bring it to a soft simmer, not a boil. Let the red round its sharp corners. Back at the bowl, test with a spoon. If it holds, you're ready. Wet your hands and shape dumplings the size of walnuts, patient and even. The soup opens to receive them. Lower each one like a promise you mean to keep. They sink, then rise a little, breathing in warmth. 10 minutes, maybe 12, enough for bread to set into tender pillows and tomato to slip around every crease. Ladle it out and the bowls look generous, ruby broth, pale dumplings afloat, steam curling like a blessing. A thread of oil across the top if you have it, grated cheese if luck is near. If not, the soup stands complete. The first spoonful answers gently, bright, savory, then the soft give of the dumpling. Humble bread made new. This is alchemy worth remembering. What might have been waste turned into welcome. Tuck the pot away for tomorrow. It will be deeper then. Dumplings sturdier, tomato more sure. Nothing wasted. Everything warmed. Cabbage soup. You start with a cabbage that feels sincere in the hand. Compact, cool, the outer leaves creased like a well-used note. In lean years, this was the vegetable that kept its appointment, cheap to buy, easy to grow, willing to turn a little water into supper. Set a pot on gentle heat. If you have butter, let a small piece melt. If not, a spoon of oil will do honest work. Slip in a sliced onion and let it relax until sweet. A clove of garlic if one waits in the crock. If not, you trust the onion to speak softly for both of them. Then, the cabbage, cored and cut into ribbons. It looks like too much, always does, but warmth makes room. Salt a little, stir a little, watch the mound sink and shine. Pour in water or broth, whatever the day is offered. A bay leaf, if the tin allows, a few peppercorns, perhaps a chopped potato or carrot saved from the back of the box. You bring it to a simmer that feels like breathing, steady, unhurried, small bubbles finding the surface and folding back again. The kitchen begins to smell like clean sweetness, the kind that gathers people without raising its voice. Taste and tune, salt to lift, pepper to warm. A pinch of caraway if a jar still rattles, or a splash of vinegar if the evening wants brightness. Some nights you add a spoon of tomato to tint the broth. Other nights you keep it pale, like winter light on a windowsill. Either way, what matters is the leaf itself. Tender now, translucent at the edges, giving without complaint. You ladle it into bowls and it looks modest and generous at once. Green turned golden, steam rising in small curls. Bread if you have it, butter if fortune smiles. You take a sip and feel your shoulders drop. Cabbage taught the home front a quiet lesson, how something humble can sweeten if you just keep it company. You taste and know. This is enough. Ragù of Vegetables. You begin by opening the icebox in the back door of the mind. Odds and ends, small rescues, a handful of nearlies. In lean years, nothing good went alone. Ragù meant gathering, what the garden gave, what last night left, what the market marked down. You lay it all on the board and the picture forms. Onion and garlic, a carrot with a tired tip, celery ribs, a soft tomato or a spoon of canned, a potato, a scrap of squash, a fist of greens that want to be wanted. The pot warms with a small shine of oil. Onion goes first, then garlic, until the room smells like someone is home. Carrot and celery follow, chopped to the size of conversation. You salt early so everything lets go. Tomato joins next, fresh crushed with your hand or tinned and forgiving, and a sip of water or broth to loosen the moment. Thyme if a twig dries by the window, a bay leaf from the tin, a pinch of pepper, and patience. Now comes the part you trust. Time doing what money can't. The simmer is gentle, the bubbles small. Vegetables soften and thicken, giving starch and sweetness, trading stories under the lid. If a heel of Parmesan exists, you drop the rind for depth. If not, a splash of vinegar near the end draws the picture in focus. You taste and adjust, salt to lift, pepper to warm, a thread of olive oil across the top if fortune left you a spoon. Serve it how the day decides, ladled over yesterday's bread, tossed with noodles, set beside polenta, or simply in a bowl with nothing but itself and a spoon. It is better tomorrow, as if the pieces slept on their differences and woke up agreeing. You scrape the pot and feel grateful in a way that doesn't need saying. This is the home front answer to waste. Gather, tend, and let the humble become plenty. You taste and know everything found a place. Mac and Cheese Casserole. You start with water finding its boil and a box that knows your cupboard by name. In lean years, macaroni and cheese was the closest thing to celebration you could buy with coins, plain on the back, bright in the bowl. You salt the pot like a promise and send the elbows in, cooking them shy of tender so they can finish in the oven, where patience gives pasta its courage. While they soften, you tend to the sauce, simple as a neighbor's knock. A spoon of butter if you have it, or saved drippings if you don't. A little flour whisked in until it smells like toast, then milk, poured slowly, watched kindly. The mixture thickens from thin to faithful. If a packet came in the box, you stir it through. If not, a shred of real cheese if fortune smiles, or a spoon of mustard and a pinch of paprika to wake what's already there. Salt to lift. pepper you can see. Drain the pasta, fold it into the sauce, and listen to the soft hush as the elbows settle. Tip it into a greased dish. Now the part that makes a weekday feel like a small Sunday. The top. Crushed crackers or dry breadcrumbs mixed with a breath of oil. If there's cheese left, a last handful like first snow. You bake until the edges bubble and the crown goes freckled and brave, the room filling with a smell that asks people to come nearer without calling their names. You wait a few minutes. Rest keeps the squares polite. Then spoon or slice as you like. The bite is everything you hoped. Creamy pull, pasta with a little bite, a crunch that sounds like good news. A spoon of peas folded in if the garden was kind, scraps of ham if the week allowed, or nothing extra at all but the warmth itself. There is nearly always a corner left for tomorrow, deeper after a night to think. You warm it and the edges crisp again, and you remember why this endured. A box, a pot, an oven, and the belief that even an ordinary evening can carry a ribbon of celebration. Liver and onions. You begin with onions because onions teach patience. Slice them thin and let them ease into a skillet with a small shine of fat. Butter if you have it, save drippings if you don't. Salt early so they give up sharpness and take on gold. The house starts to smell like faith kept warm. While they soften, you tend to the liver, the cut that showed up when steak did not, rich in iron and resolve. Trim it neat, and if fortune leaves you a cup of milk, soak it to gentle the mineral edge. If not, trust the onions to do that work. Pat the slices dry and dust in seasoned flour, salt, pepper, a whisper of paprika, so they'll sear and hold their juices. Scoot the onions aside and wake the heat. A little more fat if the pan asks. Lay in the liver and listen for the quick, confident sizzle. This is not a long conversation, a minute or two each side, just until the outside browns and the center stays tender. Overcook and you lose the kindness. Stop on time and you keep it. Lift the slices to rest beside the onions. Now for the part that makes a plate into a supper. Splash in water, broth, or milk and stir up the brown bits, the fond that remembers everything. Let it thicken to a light gravy, then fold the onions back until they shine like amber under glass. Taste and tune. Serve simply. Liver under, onions over, gravy and soft ribbons, mashed potatoes if the week allows, or a heel of bread to catch what the fork can't. The first bite tells the truth. Sweet onion, gentle bitterness, the hearty weight of something meant to fortify. In lean years, nose to tail wasn't fashion, it was respect. You learned to honor what you had, cook it carefully, and feed strength back into the people you loved. Another bite, and you feel steadied. This is thrift with its shoulders back. Mock chicken legs. You remember the quiet ingenuity of it. A bowl of mixed scraps. Pork if that's what the butcher trimmed. Veal if a neighbor shared. A little beef if the week allowed. Seasoned and coaxed to stand in for a bird you couldn't bring home. Salt and pepper by memory, onion minced fine, breadcrumbs and an egg to help it keep shape. What you're making isn't pretense, it's care with a little ceremony. Wet your hands and shape the meat around short sticks, skewers when you had them, trim twigs or even spoon handles when you didn't, pressing each one into a modest drumstick. Children watch this part, wide-eyed, because alchemy is easiest to see in a kitchen. Roll in flour, dip in beaten egg if fortune allows, then breadcrumbs for a coat that will turn to gold, paprika for color, a breath of dried thyme or sage if the jar still rattles. The pan waits, shallow oil, steady heat. The first leg lowers in with a confident hush. Turn carefully as the crust freckles and deepens, or slip the tray into a hot oven if the day calls for less tending. Either way, the room fills with the gentle promise of something special on an ordinary night. Rest on brown paper, a small patience that keeps the crust crisp. Serve the way memory suggests, a spoon of gravy from the pan's browned bits, or simply mustard and sliced pickles, mashed potatoes if the ledger smiles, cabbage slaw if the garden insists. The first bite answers kindly, juicy within, seasoned and sure, the crust breaking with a soft crackle. No one feels fooled, they feel considered. Tomorrow, cold leftovers become sandwiches on thick bread, and the bones you imagined become a story you tell. What these drumsticks offered wasn't imitation, it was inclusion, a way to bring the feeling of a feast to a weeknight. Thrift, shaped with attention, becomes celebration. Stuffed cabbage rolls. You begin with a pot of water and a cabbage that sits in your hands like a quiet promise. The outer leaves are sturdy, the inner ones pale as early morning. In lean years, this is how you made a little meat walk farther, tucking it into leaves that knew how to hold. Blanch the cabbage whole, easing it in and out of the simmer so leaves loosen without tearing. One by one they release, glossed and willing. On the board, trim the thick rib so the leaf will bend like it understands you. The filling is what the week can spare, a small measure of ground meat, a handful of cooked rice or barley to stretch, onions softened in a spoon of fat, salt, and pepper by feel, a whisper of garlic or dill if the jar isn't empty. Mix with your hands, because that's how care travels into food, and taste for courage. Spoon, fold, roll. Tuck the sides like wrapping a letter, then bottom up and top down until the seam rests under its own weight. The pot that parboiled the cabbage welcomes the rolls. Line the bottom with torn leaves to keep scorches away, nestle parcels close, and pour over a sauce of tomatoes and water, broth if you have it, sweetened with a pinch of sugar, brightened with a thread of vinegar. A bay leaf slips in, the lid settles. The simmer is gentle. Rice swells, meat sets, cabbage softens into something friendly. Lift the lid and the room smells like red and green agreeing. Ladle sauce over the top and take the first cut. Steam sighs out and the filling holds, grains shining. Serve with mashed potatoes when the ledger smiles, or rye bread to catch the sauce when it doesn't. Tomorrow they taste even truer, as if the pieces learned each other's names overnight. Thrift tucked tenderly, hunger met with structure and grace. Small bundles, yes, but they carry a household. Corned beef and potato hash. You hear the promise before the plate arrives, the lively hiss of a skillet when diced potatoes meet hot fat, the sound of starch turning brave. In lean years, hash practiced gratitude, taking what remained, yesterday's corned beef, a lonely onion, a few potatoes, and giving it a second chance with heat and attention. Start with the knife's steady work. Potatoes into small, even cubes so they cook as one mind. Onion chopped fine enough to melt, corned beef trimmed of gristle and cut to match the potatoes so no bite feels cheated. A heavy skillet, cast iron if you have it, goes on, slicked with drippings saved in a jar or a spoon of oil, if that's what the day allows. Potatoes go first because patience belongs to them. Salt lightly and let them sit, not stir, until undersides catch and brown. You're not rushing supper, you're building it. When the edges freckle, slide in onion and let it sweeten the corners. Then, the meat, tossing gently so every piece kisses the heat. Pepper shows up boldly, a pinch of paprika if the tin still rattles. If the pan looks dry, add a breath more fat. Hash likes a little gloss. Now the turn from good to right. Press the mixture with the back of the spatula and leave it be, giving time to form a crust that will lift in wide, proud sheets. Turn in sections like pages, revealing a browned mosaic that smells like comfort finding its voice. Some nights you crown it with a fried egg, the yolk running like a small sunrise. Other nights, pickled beets or a spoon of mustard. Always bread for the edges and quiet at the first bites. Hash teaches something simple. Leftovers aren't lesser, they're prepared. Care plus heat lets yesterday feed today with honor. Prune Compote with Farina. You begin with a small pot and a patience that fits the evening. Dried prunes go in, wrinkled moons with more sweetness than they let on, followed by water enough to cover and a little more. In lean years, dried fruit was the cupboard's good friend. It waited without complaint and gave when asked. Set the heat low and let time do what money can't. The prunes plump and loosen, sending color into the water until the whole pot turns dusk. Add a thin peel of lemon if one sits on the counter, a spoon of sugar if the day allows, or a drizzle of molasses if that's what you have, a clove or small cinnamon stick if the jar still rattles. The simmer is gentle, no rush, just small breaths along the surface. Press a prune with the back of a spoon. It yields kindly, releasing a syrup that tastes older than worry. While the compote deepens, cook the farina, the cereal that knows how to soothe. A saucepan, a slow rain of grains into warming milk or water, whisked so no lumps surprise you. Salt, only a pinch, because even sweet needs a small backbone. The porridge thickens from thin lines to soft ribbons, settling into a quiet that carries well on a spoon. Ladle farina into bowls and crown with prunes, their purple shining like stained glass. A little syrup runs to the edges, marbling the cream. Some nights a pat of butter melts gold into white. Other nights cottage cheese or a scatter of nuts makes it supper strong. The first bite is hush, warm, gentle, a soft tug between tart and sweet, grain and fruit present and memory. It keeps kindly. Cold, it turns almost pudding. Warmed again, it returns to silk. Families leaned on it because it was there, it was kind, and it felt like being looked after. In a house stretched thin, a small pot of slow purple made the night feel held. Apple Brown Betty. You begin with what a careful house keeps. Apples that have waited past their shine and bread, whose edges have gone firm. In lean years, this dessert didn't ask for luxury, only attention. Peel the apples if the skins feel tired, or leave them if thrift and fiber are the day's counsel. Slices fall into a bowl with a spoon of sugar if fortune allows, a squeeze of lemon if one lingers, and cinnamon dusted and rubbed between your fingers to wake its warmth. On the board, turn yesterday's bread into coarse crumbs, by knife if you have time, by hand if you don't. A small pan melts butter. If butter is scarce, a spoon of dripping stands in with a different, honest comfort. Stir the fat through the crumbs until they glisten like dry fields after rain. A pinch of salt, because sweetness needs company. Build it the way memory taught, a thin bed of crumbs in a greased dish, a drift of apples, then more crumbs, then apples again, finishing with a good top coat so the oven has something to brown. A few dots of butter if any is left, or a thread of syrup to help the crust take courage. The dish slides into gentle heat, and the house learns cinnamon's old language. Apples slump and shine, crumbs turn to a crackly quilt, amber syrup bubbles at the edges like good news trying to get in. Wait a few minutes after the bell. Patience keeps the juices from running away. Then spoon while the steam still curls. Some nights you pour a ribbon of milk along the bowl's rim. Some nights a spoon of cream, or simply the warmth itself. The first bite is quiet joy. Soft fruit toasted edges, a tug between tart and sweet that tastes like a pantry made generous. Tomorrow it's breakfast, cold or rewarmed, just as kind. Waste, watched over, becomes welcome. Yesterday's bread layered with care becomes a light at the table. Scalloped potatoes. You begin with a stack of potatoes and a patience that cuts true. Peel if the skins feel weary. Leave them if thrift says so. Slice as thin as you can, coins of evening light, so the oven can do its quiet work. In lean years, this is how a single sack fed many, turning starch into ceremony with heat, milk, and thyme. Butter, if you have it, softens a small pot. If not, a spoon of saved fat stands in. Warm flour in, whisking until it smells like toast. Then pour milk slowly, steadily, coaxing thin into faithful. Salt to lift, pepper to warm, a grate of nutmeg if the jar still murmurs. The sauce thickens to a gentle nap, the kind that holds without boasting. In a greased dish, lay slices like shingles, overlapping just enough to keep company. A veil of onions if fortune left you one, a ladle of sauce over, then another layer. Potato, a little onion, more sauce, until the dish is full of small, careful repetitions. If cheese is possible, reserve a handful for the top. If not, the milk will make its own kindness. Into the oven it goes, where patience turns simple into sure. Edges bubble and brown, the top freckles and lifts. The house fills with a scent that pulls chairs nearer without calling names. Wait a few minutes after the bell, rest keeps the slices polite, then slip a serving spoon along the side. What comes up is both tender and brave. The top faintly crisp, the center soft as reassurance. onions melting to sweetness you can't quite point to, but wouldn't go without. Some nights it stands by itself with a jar of pickles. Other nights it keeps company with greens or a slice of yesterday's meat. Tomorrow, cut into squares and warmed in a skillet, it finds its edge again. Thin gold upon thin gold until modest ingredients make deep comfort, plenty coaxed from carefulness. Turnip and carrot hash. You begin with roots that look like work, turnips dusted from the bin, carrots with their ends gone pale. In lean years, when potatoes were counted like coins, these stepped up without complaint. Trim them square at the ends, peel if the skins feel tired, and cut everything to the size of patience. Small cubes that cook evenly and fast. Set a heavy skillet over medium heat and give it what you have, a spoon of oil or a knob of saved fat. The pan answers with a low shine. First, the turnips, because they need the most time. Salt lightly so they start to let go. Let them sit so undersides catch and caramelize before you stir. Hash is a friendship between heat and stillness. Carrots follow. Chopped onion too if the basket offers one, and a clove of garlic if the crock keeps a secret. Stir only when edges freckle, folding browned bits back through so sweetness spreads. Season the way depression kitchens remembered. Pepper you can see, a pinch of paprika if the tin still rattles, a leaf of thyme or a whisper of sage if the window ledge is kind. If a splash of vinegar lives on the shelf, keep it nearby. A few drops at the end lift the whole skillet like a curtain open to light. If fortune leaves a bite of bacon or a sip of drippings, the smoke threads through like a quiet memory. What you carry to the table is humble and bright, gold and ivory cubes, edges crisped, centers tender, steam rising with a scent that says earth can learn to sweeten. Slide a fried egg on top and call it supper. Fold in cooked grains for tomorrow's lunch. Press leftovers into the pan for a new crust that cracks like good news. You taste and feel steadied. Turnip's peppery bite turned friendly by heat. Carrot's sugar coaxed to the surface. Onion's hush binding it all. Roots, fat, patience. This is how thrift learns to sing. Mulligan Hobo Stew. You begin with a pot and a circle. Whoever showed up, whatever they could spare. In lean years, mulligan wasn't a recipe so much as a covenant. A potato from one pocket, an onion from another, a can of tomatoes traded for stories, a carrot rescued from the market's end-of-day bin. You don't ask for measurements, you ask for company. The first gift is heat. The second is trust. Set the pot over a steady flame and start where flavor begins. A spoon of fat if you have it. If not, the vegetables will find their voice anyway. Onion softens until sweet. Garlic, if someone brought a clove, goes in next. Carrots and celery follow in honest chunks. Then, the found things arrive. Potatoes cut firm, tomatoes with their juice, a handful of beans, a heel of cabbage, maybe a scrap of meat or a coin of sausage if fortune wandered by. Water or broth to cover, salt to lift, black pepper to keep it brave. A bay leaf if the tin hides one. A pinch of dried herb from someone's coat falls like a blessing. The simmer is the room's heartbeat, small bubbles, slow talk, edges softening until differences taste like agreement. Stir from the bottom now and then, making sure nothing is forgotten. Someone sets out bread. Someone tells a road story. Time does what money can't, pulling stray pieces into one thing that can be ladled and believed in. Taste, and there it is. Tomato bright, cabbage gentle, starch giving body, a whisper of smoke if meat visited the pot. Never exactly the same and always exactly what's needed. Bowls pass hand to hand, spoons rest easy. There will be some for tomorrow, deeper for the night's thinking. Gathered is greater than gotten. When hunger is shared, so is the answer. You close the lid and feel the warmth of many hands in one pot. Egg drop soup. You begin with broth, because broth is the voice of the bowl. In lean years, that might mean water coaxed with onion peel, a tired carrot, a rib of celery, a bay leaf from the tin, whatever could be spared to teach the pot to taste like more. Bring it to a gentle simmer, the kind that looks like breathing. Salt to lift, black pepper to warm. If a slice of ginger waits on the windowsill or a scallion in a jar of water, they go in and make the steam smell clean. While the broth finds itself, beat an egg or two in a small cup, fork tapping the rim, yolk and white coming together like agreement. If fortune left a spoon of cornstarch, whisk it into the broth to give a little body. If not, the egg will do that work and you won't miss it. Set your spoon spinning to start a slow circle, then pour the egg in a thin, steady ribbon. The swirl draws it into strands, petals and clouds, ribbons and lace, gold unfolding in clear light. Watch, not to control, but to witness how simple things learn to be beautiful. Turn off the heat and let the surface settle. A thread of vinegar if the evening wants brightness, a drop of soy if a bottle keeps a last inch, a few scallion rings like spring scattered on snow. Ladle carefully so the ribbons keep their grace. The first sip is hush, broth that meets you halfway, egg that finishes the journey, warmth that steadies the hands. If there is rice from yesterday, a spoonful makes it supper. If not, a heel of bread will keep you company. What's left reheats kindly, strands softening but comfort no less sure. 2 eggs, a pot, a patient minute, gold from almost nothing, dignity from care. In a house taught to make do, you learn to make tender, one quiet bowl at a time. You can put the spoon down now. The pots are quiet. The table is warm. What we've walked through together weren't just recipes. They were night-by-night promises. Thrift turned tender, worry turned to steam, a little made into enough. If one of these suppers lives in your family, something your parents or grandparents still talk about, write it down below so the story keeps traveling. Save this for the weeks that ask more of you than your wallet can answer. And if you'd like to keep cooking these memories with me, subscribe and come back. There will always be a light on in this kitchen.